Alira's reflection shimmered in the cracked viewport of her dying shuttle, her orange skin seeming to glow against the darkness of space. She ran her fingers through her blonde hair, a trait that had once made her unique on Saranthia, but now marked her as an outsider everywhere she went. The settlement on Proxima 7 had been her fifth rejection in as many months. The colony administrator hadn't even let her dock. "We can't risk it," they'd said through the comm. "Unknown species, unknown diseases. Find somewhere else. Somewhere else. Always somewhere else." Her fuel reserves blinked red, and the navigation system showed only one habitable outpost within range, a human research station on the edge of charted space. Alira had heard whispers about humans during her travels, contradictory tales of both violence and compassion, curiosity and fear. The shuttle groaned as she pushed it toward the coordinates, praying to the stars that her last chance wouldn't end like all the others. As the small outpost materialized through the viewport, her heart hammered in her chest. It was modest, almost primitive compared to the advanced settlements that had turned her away, a collection of dome structures connected by enclosed walkways, sitting on a rocky moon bathed in the light of a distant blue star. Her landing was rougher than intended, the shuttle's damaged stabilizers giving out at the last moment. Sparks flew from the control panel as she powered down, and Alira sat in the pilot's seat for a long moment, exhaustion washing over her. Through the viewport, she could see a figure emerging from the main dome, a human in an environmental suit, moving cautiously toward her damaged craft. This was it, her last hope. Alira gathered what little dignity she had left, checking her appearance in the reflective surface of the console. Her orange skin was dusty, her blonde hair tangled from weeks of travel. The 3 parallel scars on her cheekbone, marks of her exile from Saranthia, seemed more prominent than ever. Taking a deep breath, she initiated the airlock sequence and stepped out into the unfamiliar atmosphere of the human outpost, unsure whether she was walking toward acceptance or another door slammed in her face. The figure removed his helmet, revealing kind brown eyes that studied her not with fear, but with wonder. Elias couldn't believe what he was seeing. In 3 years stationed at Research Outpost Kepler 9, the most exciting thing that happened was a malfunction in the water recycler. Now, standing before him, was a woman unlike anyone he'd ever encountered. Skin the color of a sunset, hair like spun gold, and eyes that held galaxies of sorrow. "Please," she said, her voice carrying a melodic accent through the translation device at her throat. "I don't mean any harm. My ship is damaged, and I have nowhere else to go. I just need—" She swayed slightly, catching herself against the shuttle's hull. Elias moved forward instinctively. "You need medical attention and food by the looks of it. Come on, let's get you inside." He watched her eyes widen in surprise, then narrow with suspicion. "I'm Elias, chief engineer, and apparently the only welcoming committee you're going to get out here. The others are in the deep stations, monitoring seismic activity. You're letting me in, just like that." Alira's voice cracked with disbelief. "You're clearly not an invasion force," Elias said with a gentle smile, noting her tattered clothing and the exhaustion etched into her features. "And I'm definitely not about to leave someone stranded in a broken ship. That's just basic decency, not heroism." As they walked toward the main dome, Alira told him about Saranthia, a world torn by civil war, where anyone who questioned the authority was branded a traitor and exiled. She showed him the scars on her cheek, marks of shame that had become her constant companions. She spoke of the settlements that had rejected her, each refusal another weight on her already burdened hearts. Elias listened, truly listened, setting her up in the guest quarters with blankets, water, and a hot meal from the station's modest supplies. "You can stay as long as you need," she said simply. "I could use the company anyway. Gets pretty lonely talking to diagnostic computers." That night, Alira lay in an actual bed for the first time in months, tears streaming down her orange cheeks. Not tears of sorrow this time, but of relief. Someone had finally seen past her alien appearance and recognized her need. As she drifted into sleep, she heard Elias working in the adjacent workshop, humming softly as he examined parts, already thinking about how to repair her ship. For the first time since leaving Saranthia, Alira felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. The following days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings found Alira and Elias in the workshop,
surrounded by the scattered components of her shuttle's propulsion system. She was surprised to discover he asked for her help rather than working alone. Most beings she'd encountered assumed her technological knowledge was inferior. "These power couplings are fascinating," Elias said, turning one over in his hands. "The energy efficiency is incredible. How does Ceranthian technology achieve this level of output with such minimal thermal loss?" Alira leaned over his shoulder, her blonde hair falling forward as she pointed to the crystalline core. "We use harmonic resonance rather than direct conversion. The crystals are grown in zero-gravity environments and attuned to specific frequencies during formation." She paused, surprised at her own enthusiasm. "I haven't talked about engineering with anyone in so long. Most see me and assume I'm incapable." "Their loss," Elias said, meeting her eyes. "You're brilliant. I've learned more in 3 days than I did in 6 months of independent study." The orange flush that spread across Alira's cheeks was different from her natural skin tone, a deeper hue that Elias was beginning to recognize as her equivalent of blushing. He found it endearing, though he kept that thought to himself. Afternoons were spent repairing the outpost's various systems. Alira proved invaluable, her 3-fingered hands more dexterous than his in tight spaces, her understanding of energy systems complementing his mechanical expertise. They worked side by side, their different perspectives creating solutions neither could have achieved alone. But it was the evenings that Elias treasured most. After dinner, they would climb to the observation dome, where the moon's thin atmosphere provided a stunning view of the stars. Alira would point out constellations visible only from this region of space, telling stories of the worlds she'd visited, some beautiful, others harsh, all part of her journey. "That one," she said, indicating a bright blue star, "has 7 inhabited worlds. They wouldn't even let me land. Said my ship's signature wasn't in their registry." She laughed bitterly, as if wanderers keep up with bureaucratic databases. Elias wanted to say something comforting, but instead found himself reaching for her hand. Her fingers intertwined with his. Different, yes, but warm and real. "I'm glad they turned you away. Is that selfish?" Alira's eyes met his, surprise and something deeper flickering in their violet depths. "Maybe," she whispered, "but I'm glad too." The distance between them seemed to shrink, though neither remembered moving closer.
2 weeks into Alira's stay, a message arrived from the regional colonial authority. Elias's stomach dropped as he read it, his expression darkening with each line. Alira noticed immediately, setting down the circuit board she'd been examining. "What's wrong?" One of the other researchers filed a report about an unregistered alien vessel at the outpost, Elias said, his voice tight with anger. "Director Chen from the main colony. He's demanding you be detained pending an investigation into your legal status and potential security risk." The color drained from Alira's face, leaving her orange skin pale and wan. "I should go. I can't let you face consequences for helping me." "Absolutely not," Elias stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Your ship isn't even space-worthy yet. Besides, I'm not letting them treat you like a criminal when you've done nothing wrong." "Elias, you don't understand," Alira said, her voice breaking. "This is what always happens. First comes the suspicion, then the investigation, then the conclusion that I'm too much trouble. I won't watch you lose everything because of me." She moved toward the guest quarters, presumably to gather her few belongings. Elias caught her arm gently. "Look at me." When she did, he saw tears beginning to form in her violet eyes. "In 2 weeks, you've become the best friend I've had in years. You've taught me about cultures spanning a dozen star systems, helped me solve engineering problems I'd been stuck on for months, and made this lonely outpost feel like a home. I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving you up because some bureaucrat is afraid of what's different." "Why?" Alira whispered. "Why would you risk so much for someone like me?" "Someone like you?" Elias stepped closer, his hand moving from her arm to her face, fingers tracing the parallel scars on her cheek that she'd always hidden in shame. "Someone brilliant, kind, and stronger than anyone I've ever met. Someone who crossed half the galaxy, refusing to give up hope. Someone whose laugh makes the stars seem brighter." "Elias," Alira's breath caught as his thumb brushed away a tear trailing down her orange skin. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Alira of Cyranthia," he said simply. "And I'll fight every authority in this sector,
if that's what it takes to give you the home you deserve." The kiss happened naturally, inevitably, as if the universe itself had been pulling them toward this moment since her damaged shuttle had landed. The confrontation with Director Chen came 3 days later, arriving at the outpost with 2 security officers and a long list of protocols Aliera supposedly violated. Elias met them at the airlock with detailed documentation, medical scans proving she posed no biological threat, testimony from Aliera about her exile status and rights under the Galactic Refugee Conventions, and his own formal request to sponsor her immigration status as a resident expert consultant. "This is highly irregular," Chen sputtered, his bureaucratic certainty wavering under the weight of properly filed paperwork. "She's an unvetted alien with no colonial credentials." "She's a sentient being asking for shelter," Elias countered, "and she's contributed more to scientific research in 3 weeks than most of your approved colonists do in a year. I've documented everything, her assistance with the gravimetric surveys, the improvements she's made to our life support efficiency, the cross-cultural database she's been compiling. Deny her refugee status, and you're rejecting someone who could revolutionize our understanding of Cyranthian technology." Iliera stood beside him, no longer hiding her scars, but wearing them as marks of survival. She'd faced rejection from countless worlds, but this time she wasn't alone. This time someone stood with her, not out of pity, but out of genuine care, maybe even love. The legal battle took months, but Elias's documentation was thorough, and Aliera's expertise proved invaluable. The colonial authority eventually granted her provisional residency, with an option for permanent status after 2 years. By then, it didn't matter much. Aliera had already found her home. They expanded the outpost together, Aliera's Cyranthian knowledge combining with Elias's human ingenuity to create a hybrid research station that attracted scientists from multiple species. The lonely moon became a symbol of cooperation, a place where differences were celebrated rather than feared. On their first anniversary, measured by the moon's orbit around its planet, Elias and Aliera stood in their observation dome, watching the stars that had once represented only rejection and loneliness to her. Now they spoke of possibilities, of futures written together. "I never thought I'd find this," Aliera said softly, her hand in his, her blonde hair catching the starlight. "A place where my orange skin and alien features didn't matter. Where someone saw me, truly saw me, and chose to love what they found." Elias pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple near those 3 parallel scars that she'd learned to cherish. "You gave up everything but never gave up hope. That's why I fell in love with you. Not beside your journey, but because of it. You taught me that home isn't a place. It's whoever makes you feel like you finally belong." As their lips met beneath the endless expanse of stars, Aliera realized that every rejection, every hardship, every lonely night in a broken shuttle had led her here, to this moon, to this man, to this moment. She had wandered across galaxies searching for acceptance, only to discover that sometimes love finds you precisely when you're brave enough to keep going despite every reason to stop. And in Elias's arms, surrounded by stars that now looked like old friends rather than indifferent witnesses, Aliera finally understood what it meant to come home.